In Gachiakuta, information is power. The story repeatedly shows that the characters who understand the world best are rarely the ones fighting on the front lines. Instead, they are the ones watching from a distance, studying events, gathering fragments of history, and slowly assembling a larger picture that most people cannot see. Two characters in particular embody this role more than anybody else. The first is Arkha Corvus, the leader of the cleaners. From the moment he is introduced, Corvis is presented as someone who possesses an unusual awareness of what is happening across the ground. Despite rarely leaving headquarters, he consistently anticipates events before they occur, understands threats before others even recognize them, and seems to have access to information that no ordinary person should possess. The second is Kuro, the mysterious information broker who operates in the shadows. Like Corvis, Kuro appears to have knowledge that predates the story itself. He speaks openly about lost pieces of history, forgotten records, and the missing memories of the world, things that even organizations like the Cleaners are still trying to uncover. At first glance, these two characters appear to serve completely different roles in the narrative. Corvus leads an organization that actively hunts trash beasts and protects settlements across the ground. Kuro, on the other hand, remains outside those systems entirely, functioning as an independent observer who sells knowledge to anyone capable of finding him. But as the story progresses, a strange pattern begins to emerge. Both characters possess an unusually deep understanding of the world's hidden history. Both show signs of having lived far longer than their appearance suggests. Both demonstrate a connection to Canis Surebrec, the creator of the Watchmen series and one of the most important figures in the world's forgotten past. And perhaps most interestingly of all, both are connected to the same animal, the crow, which raises a question that becomes even harder to ignore the deeper the story goes. What if Corvus and Kuro are not simply connected to one another? What if they are the same person? Because when you begin examining the details surrounding both characters, their names, their knowledge, their abilities, and the subtle clues hidden throughout the manga, the possibility that Corvus and Kuro share the same identity starts to look less like coincidence and more like something that the story has been quietly hinting at from the very beginning. Arkha Corvus is the leader of the Cleaners, the organization responsible for eliminating trash beasts and maintaining relative order on the ground. Unlike most leaders in action-driven stories, however, Corvus rarely participates in combat directly. Instead, he operates from the background, overseeing operations and guiding the actions of various cleaner teams. At first, this appears to simply be a leadership role, but the deeper the story progresses, the more unusual Corvus's behavior becomes. Despite rarely leaving headquarters, Corvus consistently demonstrates knowledge of events happening far beyond the reach of normal observation. He anticipates developments before they occur, identifies solutions before others fully understand the problem, and repeatedly hints that he is aware of information that has been lost to the rest of the world. This becomes particularly clear during the incident where Rudo and several others are captured and taken inside a trash beast. While the other cleaners scramble to determine what happened and how to rescue them, Corvus calmly states that he knows a person who can provide the information they need. That person is Kuro, an information broker who, much like Corvus, appears to possess knowledge that should not realistically be available to him. This interaction alone would not mean much, but as the story continues, Corvus displays several additional traits that makes his awareness far more difficult to explain. For example, in chapter 84, Corvus correctly predicts that Zenka's sister will arrive before anyone has informed him of her visit. Moments like these imply that Corvus is not simply reacting to events, but observing them in some other way. Semyu even comments at one point that Corvus saw something, suggesting that his understanding of events may come from some form of perception rather than simple deduction. There are several hypotheses about what Corvus's ability might actually be. One of the most common ideas is that Corvus may likely be observing events through his eye, possibly using it as some kind of surveillance ability. And surrounding all this is a recurring visual detail that the story repeatedly draws attention to: the eye. Throughout the series, imagery connected to eyes repeatedly appears around Corvus. When we first become familiar with him in chapter 22, several panels in the background prominently feature graffiti depicting large, watchful eyes. At first glance, these may appear to be environmental decoration or random visual details, but the same imagery appears again later in the story. Then, in chapter 53, we see something even stranger. As Semyu enters Corvus's room, the tattooed eye on the back of his neck is shown rolling upward from settling back into place. The panel composition deliberately focuses on his movement, suggesting that the eye is not simply decorative. Later chapters show similar moments with the eye shifting direction or appearing to look towards different areas. Taken together, these details strongly suggest that Corvus's eye may allow him to observe people or even events from afar. But once again, that deeper theory about how the eye actually works is something we'll explore in another video. video. Kuro operates as an information broker who appears at key moments throughout the stories, providing knowledge that other characters cannot obtain on their own. Unlike Corvus, Kuro does not belong to any organization and does not participate directly in major conflicts. Instead, he moves through the world quietly, observing people and events before selling that information to those capable of reaching him. But Kuro's abilities make him far more unusual than a simple spy. Kuro possesses the ability to transform into a crow. At first glance, this might appear to simply be a power of a Genki, but Kuro explicitly states that he is not a giver. If this is true, then the ability to transform cannot come from a vital instrument, which means the source of his power is something else entirely. And once we know this, the many crows appearing throughout the manga start to look less like environmental details and more like possible sightings of Kuro himself. Several moments throughout the story strongly suggest that Kuro has been observing events long before characters ever met him. For example, when Mudo and the others travel to Canvas Town, a crow can be seen nearby observing them. Another possible appearance occurs in Amo's flashback when she was a child and her mother was about to sell her to her lover. Again, a crow is present during that moment. Then later, when Rudo and the others go to meet the information broker, something even more interesting happens. At the exact same time the group arrives, a crow arrives as well, which raises a very simple question: where exactly was Kuro coming from? Moments like these suggest that Kuro has been moving around the world in the form of a crow, quietly watching events unfold long before anyone realizes he is there. And if we look even further back, the earliest time we may actually have seen Kuro could be all the way back in chapter 4, when Engine is first introducing Rudo to the ground and explaining why information is so important. The panel composition briefly shifts to a crow nearby. At the time, it seems like a minor environmental detail, but in hindsight, it may have been our very first glimpse of Kuro. During the information broker arc, Momoa briefly looks into Kuro's memories. Two moments stand out. In one memory, someone refers to Kuro as boss while talking about trash beasts. That person strongly resembles Engine. In another memory, Kuro extends his hand, wearing a glove, and calls out someone named Canis Surebrec, the creator of the Watchmen series, the set of vital instruments that play a central role in the story's larger mystery. If Kuro personally knew Canis Surebrec, then that would imply he has existed far longer than the current generation of characters. But Kuro himself also makes statements that reinforce this possibility. At one point, he mentioned he has forgotten who he was and that he has played many different roles throughout his life, which suggests that the identity we know as Kuro may simply be the latest in the long series of identities. And when we return to Corvis, that possibility begins to look far more significant. When Corvis and Kuro are examined side by side, the similarities between them become difficult to ignore. First are the names. The name Corvis comes from Latin and literally means crow or raven. Meanwhile, the name Kuro means black in Japanese, which is another direct association with crows. It could also be a somewhat unsubtle way to hint that Kuro might actually be Corvis, considering that Kuro himself is, well, you know. But I digress. Both names point toward the exact same animal. Second, both characters appear to share the same ultimate objective. Kuro speaks about uncovering the lost memories of the world, explaining that parts of history have disappeared or been erased. Corvus tells Rudo that the true purpose of the cleaners is to uncover the origins of the sphere and the ground and understand why those historical records have vanished. Both are searching for the same truth, both are attempting to recover the same missing history, and both seem to have been pursuing this goal for a very long time. Kuro even states in chapter 113, when speaking with Ryo, that the cleaners hold a very special place in his heart and that he has a unique connection to them. That statement becomes far more interesting when we remember the memory when someone resembling Engine refers to Kuro as boss. If that person truly is Engine, it would strongly support the idea that Kuro might actually be Corvus himself. This shared objective becomes even more interesting when we consider Corvus's own motivations. At one point, Corvus passionately explains that he continues sending cleaners on dangerous missions not only to protect settlements, but also to uncover information about the origins of the world. And he makes it very clear why this search matters to him. He says he is doing it for a friend. Given everything we know about the world's history, the most likely candidate for that friend is Canis Surebrec, and there may actually be visual evidence to support this idea. During the Heritage Mural arc, we see symbols representing the friends of Makaka Aiko. Among these symbols is the emblem associated with the Watchmen series, which represents Canis Surebrec, but alongside that symbol is another one, an eye, a symbol that strongly resembles the tattooed eye Corvus has on the back of his neck. If that interpretation is correct, then the mural may be quietly confirming that Corvus himself was part of the same group of individuals connected to the world's hidden history, which would mean that the friend Corvus is referring to to could indeed be Canis Surebrec, and if both Corvis and Kuro share a connection to the creator of the Watchmen series, then it becomes increasingly plausible that they are not two separate figures connected to the same mystery, but rather the same individual operating under different identities. If Corvis and Kuro are the same person, it would explain several things that otherwise remain difficult to reconcile. It would explain how Corvis possesses knowledge of events occurring far beyond the reach of normal observation. It would explain how Kuro appears to arrive at key moments throughout the story without anyone noticing him beforehand, and it would explain why both characters seem equally invested in uncovering the lost history of the world. Because if Corvis and Kuro are truly the same person, then the leader guiding Rudo's journey and the mysterious observer watching events from the shadows have been working toward the same goal all along, recovering the forgotten history of the world and waiting for someone capable of uncovering the truth behind it, someone like Rudo.